Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the coffee talk today and have a beer with all the Daybreak beautiful photo. So this coffee talk, I will talk about the infographic I did for CELA. So I went to CELA in this March in Salt Lake City, Utah. So CELA stands for Council of Educators in Landscape Architecture. So there's a lot of people from the professional and the education, and academics comes into this conference. So Daybreak is the project of design workshop that's based in Salt Lake City office. So basically, Daybreak is my very first project in US and in design and with design workshop. So my very first baby. So I always love this project, and then since this year CELA set up in Salt Lake City, and the highlight project of this event is also Daybreak. So why not talk about Daybreak? At CELA, they have a field trip, one-day field trip to a couple of places. So Daybreak is one of the locations. So every single people who go to CELA this year either go to Daybreak to visit or hear about Daybreak. So it's kind of a big deal. So once they know about Daybreak, they know about design workshop too. So that's kind of how we stand for in the conference in this time. So let's talk more about this. So I work on this project, but this is a little bit different from just telling the project to the client. This is about turning the data, like the text data, the research data, the narrative, the story of Daybreak into infographic in one single poster. So I have this data that I have to turn all of them into just into that one paper. So first I will start off with telling the story of the poster itself, and then afterward I will tell the step on how I make this infographic. So this is when I was presenting, and that's the Daybreak. So today let's do two parts. So let's start off with the story. So I will do it like when I did in CELA. So Daybreak, a lot of you might already know, Daybreak is the large community, it's the 4,100 acres of the historic mining site in Salt Lake City, Utah, that turned into the sustainable community. It's already built and planned to have 20,000 homes and jobs at the full build up. So it's growing and it's going to be big. It's already big, but it's going to get getting bigger. And the design, planning, and design intent implementation of Daybreak is follow the sustainability agenda that can bring the sustainability into the site, which is what we know very well, which is the economic, environment, and social. That's three rings. So that's kind of aligned to what we did in design workshop, that we have 4 categories of art, social, environment, and economics. At Daybreak, the fundamental design and the key success actually coming from the success of this stormwater infrastructure. The environmental issue that Daybreak brings the very significant success. So it's coming from propose the new solution, the sustainable approach, and trying to change from the traditional approach that using the normal stormwater infrastructure. So at Daybreak, 100% of the 100-year storm infiltrate into the ground without any impact to the municipal infrastructure at all. So it's extremely no impact to the infrastructure. So with that green infrastructure, it saves $70 million for the impact fee. So this $40 million of impact fee and the $30 million of the infrastructure cost. So it's $70 million totals of the cost, which is 10 to 15% of the total budget of the whole community, which saves a lot in the long run. And not just that, because we know that Daybreak is in the mining site. So the good thing is you don't need to buy the rock anywhere. You harvest the rock from the local site. So it saves money from hauling the rock from anywhere. We don't need to outsource the rock from anywhere. And we can use the very unique color type of the rock that you cannot find anywhere else but Daybreak. And it saves 43,000 tons of the waste rock. So you cannot really imagine what is the 43,000 tons of rock. It's 1,000 dump truck. So if you want to haul from outside, you need to take 1,000 trips to get here. So that saves a lot of money. Another part of the economics that Daybreak do really well is, this open space system is not just only for the social, it's not just for the environmental benefit, but because this open space system connected to the whole site, it adds the value to the home by 10% to any home that adjacent to the park, so that they can raise the sales value to the whole community. So that's also bring money to, and I think that's a great point of like why we create park. Definitely it's for social, it's for people, it's for environment, but it's also bringing in the money, it add value too. So that's about the economic side of Daybreak. Then we talk about the 100% of the stormwater that infiltrates into the ground. That infrastructure is the green infrastructure that consists of the 6 types, which are the Ochre Lake. So Ochre Lake is the lake in the center, which is like a signature landscape of Daybreak. It's like 64 acres of the lake. Infiltration basin, bioswale, wetland, dry wells, and stormwater canal. All this green infrastructure spread across all the open space system. And it's not just the green infrastructure that's not there, it also helps cleaning the water too. So according to Professor Boyan from Utah State University and Utah Lab, they sampled the water, and after the first flush, they found a significant removal of heavy metal. So this is what has been removed. So for example, it's 92% less of total suspended solid. So that really improved the environmental quality a lot. And if you know, Utah is the arid waste and the desert landscape. So about planting, the best thing to use as a planting is the native, drought tolerant, like water-wise plants, not the plant that use a lot of water. So in the common area of Daybreak, 60% of common landscape are native landscape, and the rest can be like turf or like the field, the sport field, that can be something else. But 60% remain to be like native. But in the residential area, the people still can have freedom of doing their own thing, but within the rule that 40% of all the landscape has to be native, and you can do whatever you want with the other 60% of the planting. So Daybreak has the pattern book, so it's like for this thing, so we work on that, and they give an option of how you could design your backyard with a different way within this number. So people who want to play their own, that's fine, but we design workshop in Salt Lake City, create a pattern book so they can see, oh, this is the option. You can do the modern, you can do like kind of like a colonial style or whatever within this way. So that's kind of help people be able to do it for real, You cannot really say, okay, you do like 40 and 40. So that we have a pattern book to kind of help it become reality. And at Daybreak, all the homes in Daybreak are 30% energy efficient. So it saves energy too, and the whole community is the lead in the pilot project. So Daybreak trying to be really fully sustainable as much as possible. To the extreme, it's not just like, well, we can be sustainable, but we must be sustainable. So I think that's the point that Daybreak really set a very strong, firm ground about being so sustainable. And with the open space system, it's not it's not just like the space for environment, but it's definitely for people. So at Daybreak, this 35-mile of trail is what connect people like culturally and naturally and environment together. So we have the open space system, but this 35-mile of trail just tie everything together, cultural, environmental, and connect people through the 4-season programming. And with this 35-mile trail, it promotes recreation and increase the quality of life. That leads to 88% of kids walk to school, compared to the benchmark of 17% of like the local, like around like surrounding or other in the state. And with the on-site employment, so people can walk to work because Daybreak has like a commercial district and has a multiple like mixed use area, and so people can work and walk to work. So 10 to 15% of daily work trip has been reduced. So it saves more energy, lower carbon footprint, and bring a better quality of life to the people. And last but not least, in like Daybreak designed under the 5-minute rules. So 5-minute rule is from any home you can get to any park in 5 minutes. Just at least one park would be at your footstep in 5 minutes. So which means 5 minutes means a quarter mile. So it's representing this diagram that you can see all this green cover everywhere in this side. When you see the white, that's the commercial area. So we don't count the commercial area as the point that we need to do the 5-minute rule, but all the homes can get into at least one park, mostly 2 parks or more. So that summarizes the strategy and evidence of how Daybreak is trying to be sustainable and be sustainable on its own way. So this is show us that the Daybreak landscape performance. So this the project. This is the task that I did for CELA. So that concludes my part on making the infographic. But then I will talk more on how did I make this kind of happen. So now it's moving on to the process of telling this one. So as you know, I start from like this guy, a lot of text like here. So, and before I'm making like this process, we need to submit the abstract first. So I need to read all this one time, writing them, and have Allison help editing my writing to get the abstract out and get the approval that okay, we approve, you can come to make a poster section. So definitely I read all of them one time before, but then it takes a while, I start to forget, then I need to do it over. So let's start over on how I make it. So I have like, let's promote this. So I have a 6-step of transforming this data into the infographic. First step, I create the structure from the objective. So we need to know why we're doing it, right? We just not just do it for fun, even though it's fun. Actually, I started because it's fun, but have to have some meaningful objective. So the objective of doing this is to tell the people, to talk about the sustainability of Daybreak. Why it's sustainable and how its performance, what it is. So if we want to talk about the sustainable design, the sustainability, how can we get away without like talking about the sustainability agenda, those 3 rings here? Because that's what all the people agree to, that this is some things that create the sustainable design together. So then when I get the objective, I got this structure of that 3 rings to be like the structure, the framework I'm going to work around. Then I first start to say, okay, I will have 3 boxes. Instead of I will say 3 categories, I say 3 boxes, like a big box, and I will throw stuff in and okay, you guys here, you guys here, you guys there. So it starts to feel more like visual, just for me. So, but then I also use this structure to start to think about how I'm going to lay out the information on the paper. But it's not that I decide, I just showing the idea. I'm not liking anything at all until it's coming later into the end that I decide it's gonna be like that. But that's gonna be later on that I decide it's gonna be introduction at the top and 3 rings. I was thinking about integrate them before, but with this size of paper, it's not really doable to be like have a circle and circle and circle. If I have like this much of the wall, maybe I'd be able to do like real circle. Then I was like, well, I can talk on one thing at once anyway. So what can I talk first? So then I start to come from economics, environment, and then social. And then second part, easy, but hard and kind of boring. Just read over again and skim through all this. So I have to read it over all these books, going through, but I'm trying to get the big idea of what it is. What's the impression I have without missing the minor things about Daybreak. So I'm trying to go back and forth between big and small at the same time, but dive in. Then I start to organize the data in my head. But when I say I organize the data, like I said, first I have 3 boxes, right? So I couldn't really make the real box like 3D, but I can at least make a 2D boxes. So I create the box in Excel. Then I write a note, summarize, drop into the box. So in the Excel sheet, I create like a 3 boxes there and have a subcategory inside that and throw things in there. Then I read it again, I skim and throw it into this box. So then I start to see, okay, which information I have the most, which I have less. So then that's when I kind of organize data, and it's not too bad. It kind of looks like this, but in the end, when it's come down into like 11 by 17 of like this, it doesn't look that bad anymore. So, so that's how I digest the data. Then once I start to go back to it again. Now I prioritize and trim the fat and make a new narrative, finding the connection between all this data. Because it's still a lot. I have only one poster, 24 by 36. How could I fit everything into there? No way. So I have to prioritize. And then I start to highlight, just kind of circle around which one is the most important, which one is secondary, and which one should be after, which one should be first. Then I start to think about that. And it's leading me to the next step that I start to think about how it's gonna look like, which is visualize. It's the most fun part, but it already takes like 70% of my process to get this far. It takes a lot of time until I come to the fun part. So, but here we go. So visualize, then I start to think about how should I visualize them, because one narrative, one sentence, one story, you have so many ways to visualize them. What's the best way? So again, I need to make an alternative of like, okay, this statement, I can have these couple ways of saying what's the best way that's gonna fit this project, fits the whole information, fits the context, not just looks good. Because you can make the diagram look so good, oh so good what it is. I need to make sure it's understandable. So it's kind of challenge at the same time, that I cannot just make something look so cool but not understandable, some things like that. So this is something universal graphic that luckily we make it like this all the time and everyone understands. I'm so glad. So I don't need to reinvent anything new. But so just simplify, but I have to make everything over again because it's for a different purpose, and the old graphic we have is not really usable in this way. So I need to remake all the graphic. But things that more interesting is when it's really a text, it's really a number. And when I'm trying to make it into the graphic, then I try a couple ways and I find this is very useful way to show the comparison between two things. Like this is the 88% of what we have that kids walk to school, but 17% of the benchmark is this much, or 10 to 15% has been reduced. So what is the reduce? Okay, let's say it's the donut. I eat 10 to 15% of the donut. I bite it off. Oh, okay, that's kind of things like that. So it's kind of fun, but it takes a while until I come to like think about that. And pay attention to all the details. I create about 5 types of dump truck that legible, and I end up with this type that kind of still looks like a dump truck. And this one I throw away, but it was some things I experiment with. So then all those details is coming to the final tune. So I was diving into so very detailed, but then I have to look back and step back to see like what overall looks like, and unless it looks pretty nasty, then I have to step back and dive in to change it again. So this last step is to make sure the story flows seamlessly and the graphic is like agreeable to the eyes of the beholder, because you might think it looks so cool, but people was like, oh, that's ugly, I don't understand this. So it's kind of like make sure the story works, the graphics right. So this is how the iteration goes. This is what I say nasty, because you can see I didn't really have any color coordination. I just dumped stuff into there and it just nothing. I was so disappointed of myself. I need to move away from this guy as much as possible. So I was like, oh my god, I think the structure was good, why it's not working? Then I try a couple times, iterate until it's come to this far. It's almost there, and I get a comment like it's missing one thing, it's missing the soul of the project. Daybreak is in the desert landscape. It's not cool, it's hot, it's warm, it's dry. This is not feeling like that. So then I need to, apart from all the information, I need to bring the feel, the atmosphere of Daybreak in. So I use the color palette of Daybreak to bring it in. Then at the end, I got the final touch to make sure it's warm. It's not black, it's dark green, yellowish green, it's Daybreak. Then it's coming to this final poster that I have. So, conclusion. So for me, I think visualization is not just about making a beautiful graphic, and it's not just about you have a good eyes and you can make anything, or you can just have a good taste. That's important, that's very, very important. But I think the key of making a visualization good is you have to have an organized mind and understand how the mind of the audience works. You have to understand their brain, and you need to understand your data, what you really want to tell. And because people, in reality, people don't want to think. Even though they say, I can think, I want to think. No, everyone don't want to think, because you want to get the information as fast as possible once you see it. So I think our role, if we make a graphic, our role is to bring the connection of those data connecting to the people. So we need to understand the platform to connect them together. So to me, finding the sweet spot between data, visual, what you see, and the people's mind is what makes the best graphic. And to make it so special, so unique, you add yourself, you add your view, your point of view as the designer, as the visualization machine, or whatever. Visualization artist sounds better, so make it your own way. But I think this philosophy will bring the success on creating any visualization to tell the story. Thank you.
Great job.